We are live, and good morning, everyone. Good morning. So, if you can hear me, yes, good morning. So, welcome again.
All right. Let me live stream this to Facebook. I always forget to. And then we'll dive in. What is up, everybody? Hope you're all keeping well. Live. Cool. Shameen, what's up? Always good to see you. Doing very well. Appreciate you asking. Cool. Today, we have a little bit of a banger to go through. I spent a good amount of the weekend and some of yesterday drafting up like a very in-depth kind of document resource, whatever you want to call it, for you to go through. This is an amalgamation. It's like a huge combination of tons of different sales trainings. Um, yeah, I probably will keep expanding on it. I'm not going to lie, but as of right now, there's a lot inside of there. Genuinely, this kind of shit, like people spend a lot on some of this coaching. So I want to bless all of you with some of that today. Just finished training it for the Educate team. So now we're going to train it for all of you lucky individuals. So we'll dive straight in. And then if we have questions or anything at the end, we can hit those. Let me throw on the good old Batman ambience background because I like to have a little bit of background music. But yeah, I think this should be fairly beneficial for a lot of people, hopefully, anyway. Cool. And then, yeah, obviously, if we kind of go through everything and there's a bunch of questions and stuff, then we can hit on those near the end. But for now, last week I went over seven things, like almost like a 7-point checklist that you need to do throughout your discovery to have like an objectionless close. Okay, so like a frictionless close. What I want to do, because I slightly went in depth on them, but not like in depth. So I've created a huge fucking document that goes in depth on each one of those points with example questions and exactly how to frame it and everything like that, which I'll give to you at the end of the call. This is, yeah, I never praise myself, but this is some fucking strong shit, even on my side. So obviously we'll drop this document in the chat, but just to recap from last week, I always forget to let people in when they go in the waiting room. Cool. Last week, just to recap, we went over these 7 things are stuff that we need in order to create an objectionless close, basically, like I said. So the goal with this is like, we know that if we've identified the pain, widened the gap of that pain, created doubt within them, gone through opportunity cost, what if they don't make a change, that kind of thing. We've built the desire where they want to go to, finances if we need to, are they supported in their decision by their wife, by their partner, whatever it might be? And do they trust us that we're different, we're unique, all of that stuff? So we went through that on the last call. So these are the 7 things that if you tick off every single one of these throughout your discovery, when you get to the end of the call, bar from maybe some little logistics or whatever, you should have a close that is seamless. You're not going to have too much like friction. If you do, might be like finances, but then they just need a payment plan because we still touched on all of those things. Okay, so right here is the master document that I've been building. You can see a lot of our team is on it at the moment because I just finished doing it, coaching it for our team. But we go through on here pain questions, building that doubt, widening the gap, building the trust, building upon the pain and addressing their past. So they've tried stuff before. You can't hear me? I think it should be good. You should be able to. Yeah, I just checked my mic, so it should be okay. You can hear me okay? Cool. Okay, sweet. You scared me for a second. I thought I'd just been talking for 5 minutes about nothing. Yeah, so building upon and addressing the past pain. This, for me, is one of the most common things that I hear about when people are starting their agency sales calls. So it's like, oh, they've already tried to work with agencies before, it didn't work. They're getting impatient on the sales call. They're just asking me for the price, all of that stuff. Okay. So addressing that, obviously finances, if we feel like it's needed, like let's say they say their business is really struggling, or if it was like you're selling to a B2C instead of B2B, and they say like, hey, I'm sleeping on the couch every night right now, like then you would probably address the finances. Okay. Opportunity cost and getting support from their spouse, his partner, whatever it might be. Um, so those are the main points. Like I said, if you hit all 7 of those points, by the time you get to the end of the sale, especially if you're utilizing the discovery call framework that I've done as well, you should be ready to fucking go. Okay, because if you use these 2 documents together, I would personally say, in my experience, that there's almost nothing that you like will come up that you haven't already covered. Okay. Because this will tell you the exact structure, how to set up the frame of the call, how to transition, all of this stuff. And then this will give you specific questions that tick off all of the boxes. Absolutely. I've got you. Sure. Good to see some new names. Hopefully, you'll find this beneficial. This is the discovery call framework. So this is exactly how to structure your sales call, basically. Okay, goes pretty in depth. We're building upon the pain. It teaches you how to transition into the pitch, all of that stuff. That's the discovery call one. And then this one is the one that I've been doing, operating, making across the weekend. So this is building upon the 7 checklists that you need to do throughout your discovery call. Okay, cool. Give me 1 second. So do something real quick. Then I'll break down exactly what I mean with this document. So when you're starting out your sales call, now every person is going to be slightly different. Maybe you already know a lot about the company. If you don't, then you need to get a baseline understanding of what they do first, the background. Okay. If you do, then you can basically just go straight in with like the pain problems that they have. If you need to know about their business, you don't really know too much about what they even do. We would start with simple questions, and these ones I shouldn't really need to script out. Like you're going to know how to ask them questions about what their business is doing. Okay, that's going to be sort of niche dependent. It would be like, what are you selling? What's your price point? What service are you offering? What does your ideal client look like? You can start to challenge them in here as well. A good way of doing that is like, there's obviously a lot of companies that are offering a similar thing to what you're offering. What exactly are you doing currently that's helping you stand out as a unique, different, superior business, if anything? Okay. And we start to challenge them a little bit there because then we're already creating a little bit of that doubt. How are you generating your leads? How is the fulfillment handled? What is your current sales process like? Okay. I'm not gonna go super in depth on this because this is just like getting an understanding on what the business does. I don't think I need to coach too much on that. So from here, we then start to dig into the pain. You've got 4 examples of quote. I wanted this document to be like foolproof. Like no one can go wrong with it. So these are like 4 or 5 questions that you can use, and obviously you can make your own a similar vibe. But like these are like 4 or 5 questions that you can use, and then I've given examples for if you don't really get the type of answer you were looking for. So there's like levels to like if you don't get what you're looking for, you go to the next level. If you still don't get what you're looking for, you go to the next level on that. So with this, you're going to get some people where you ask them like, okay, in your business, what's your biggest challenge right now? And they'll just open up to you. They just start telling you everything. That kind of person, you don't really need to start asking all of these extra questions. Okay, because what they tell, let's say they tell you, oh, like our lead flow is very inconsistent. You would just expand upon that. Okay, inconsistent lead flow. What do you mean by that? Oh, okay, like this, we only get some weeks we'll get 10, other weeks we'll get none. Okay, how is that having an effect on your business? And we start to branch off based on what they've said. But if we get the type of person where like you're asking these questions and they're giving you the bullshit, okay? I see this all the time. What's your biggest challenge right now? Oh, everything's okay. I just want to see what you do. Or I just want to know the price of what you do. Whatever the fuck they might say, like, yeah, things are fine. Cool. They are not on a sales call because everything's fine, okay? There's a problem. They're just a bit more of a closed off prospect. So what you'll find as well, two ways of this. Sometimes, and we've touched on this before, you've got different types of people. So if someone is a toward person, and what that means is, let's say you said, "What's your biggest challenge right now?" And they said, like, "Oh, I just want to hit 100K per month with my business." That's not a challenge. That is a goal, which means that they are the type of person that fixates on their goals, not on the problems. So what we actually need to do in that scenario is reverse engineer it. Okay. And we can do that in the same way if they're not giving us the answers here as well. So it'd just be like, what exactly are you doing? What exactly are you trying to accomplish in your business currently? Oh, I want to hit this amount. Okay. What do you actually feel like you need to get there as soon as possible? And then what's the biggest reason you're not there already? Here, a huge portion of the time, you'll then get the pain questions that you were trying to get out from these initial questions. They just have a slightly different way of thinking. If you still don't get it, if they're, let's say that they're really closed off and they're like, oh, I will hit that goal, it's just a matter of time, that type of prospect, you would then go down the route of like, well, okay, well, how long do you think it's going to take you to get there? What's keeping you from getting there faster? What's the old, like the goal? And we still build that pain. Okay. um mm, 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 mm. Sorry, just reading this question here from Ken. Which has no property to advertise. Money wasn't the issue. We've concluded the schedule for another time. Hmm. That's a really interesting one. I don't want to hold on it for too long, just because it's very very specific for you. I'm more than happy to give like a ton of advice on that, on Instagram or through emails or WhatsApp or whatever method of communication you prefer. If you want to do that, the best thing that you could have done in that scenario, if they say, think about it, that that's not true. So, like I always say, an objection is like we need to isolate what the actual issue is. Think about it isn't an objection; it's a smokescreen. Like it's not a reason. It's not a thing at all. Thinking about something means that there's something missing. That would be the only thing that you've kind of messed up with. That is just like we don't have full clarity on where their head is specifically targeted on what the actual issue is. Okay, so that would be like the main thing. Obviously, you've already said that you're going to schedule for now. When you say like for another time when he has listings to advertise, it's a bit washed that answer because that could be whenever. There's not really a time frame on that. So I would say that there's a somewhat strong likelihood that like you'll struggle to get on a call with that person again unless you can really angle it in a different way. Um, yeah, in terms of further advice, I feel free you can private message me or something on here if you want me to like try and go a little bit more in depth on it. Um, I'm more than happy. He can't record videos of listings he doesn't have yet. I mean, so it's a very very specific scenario. The main takeaways that you can at least get from it is like watching through the video, all of that. Like every single business call and sales call is a lesson. Okay, like seeing how you could have at least addressed the objections at the end a lot better, and then tried to reframe his mind as well. Like I'm sure there must be people who have been in a similar scenario where they've overcome that. So like being able to isolate what the actual issue is and how you can overcome that, Obviously, the running the agency itself, that's not really my area. That's going to be one of more of the agency calls. But the sales side is the stuff that I can focus on and help on. And it doesn't sound to me like we've clearly isolated like deeply why he believes that like this means that we couldn't have any form of fruitful relationship. There must be other people that have a similar scenario and they still make it work. And then you would ask him like, are you opposed to us trying to figure out a way that we could make this work? And if he's like, oh yeah, no, it's not really worth it, to me that then doesn't really sound like it's that objection. It sounds like there is not a full trust in what you do. Again, it's kind of pushing past the smoke screens. So that would be like my advice just out the gate. But like I said, feel free to reach out to me, and we can go a bit more in depth on it if you want. Just on the sales side, I can see how I would have handled it a little bit differently. If you have a call recording, you can send it to me as well. I'm more than happy to check it out. But yeah, cool. So to go back in, so obviously these are all of our pain questions. And then the last point of contact with this pain questions is if this is almost like worst case scenario, okay, for that type of prospect who's like, oh, things are okay, but like it's not perfect, like, and they're just not giving you much. So let's say that you're selling a lead gen service for your agency, okay? You would ask obviously a background question: how are you generating those leads right now? Is that working well for you? And then you would use like tonality, purposeful pauses, all of that shit, where you'd just be like, awesome. I mean, that sounds like it's going fairly well for you. I mean, I'm curious, what would you change about that then if you could? Okay, so like we're going like layers and layers until you finally get the answer. And the reason that I've given like 3 examples of questions that you can build upon is without it, if you don't get a clear problem and isolate that problem, you will never get a close anyway. I touch on this in here. If there is no problem, there is no sale. It's as simple as that, okay? And if you've got that type of prospect that's like, oh, things are okay, it's not, it's not too bad, whatever it might be, they won't close anyway. So the only like you should stay on this section until you have a clear cut, identifiable problem where we can then build upon that. Yo, what's up? Amin, good to see you. Let me drop the document just here for you. Man, cool. Shamin's on it as well, my guy. So then once we have clearly isolated the problem, it's about building the gap, okay? Widening the gap. So, and I just want to quickly check, like, because I know a couple of new people have just jumped in as well. I'm giving you all of these different ways of asking these types of questions. You obviously do not want to ask them all, and you also want to make sure that the flow of the conversation is still natural. Look at these as like check boxes, like I said. So you would hit on the pain, and then you hit on the doubt and the cost and the desire, all of these things. But these are like as in depth that I can give in terms of examples and why we're doing them. So if I've done all fucking 7 of those, I've done a strong ass call. Like I've really put like as much as I could into this call to like absolutely maximize the chance of this person closing. Okay. So widening the gap. So all we need to do, let's say that they say it's inconsistent lead flow. Tell me more about that. What did you mean by inconsistent lead flow? Okay, so the biggest challenge is inconsistent lead flow. Why do you say that? Okay. You wouldn't ask you'd ask one of those questions, but it's very, very simple. That's how you would start. You keep it simple. You would just simply take what they've said and ask them to expand on it. Okay. And then we start to branch out and go a bit deeper. Why is that important now, though? What's actually shifted recently for you? And then aside from inconsistent lead flow, is there anything else that you would change about your situation if you could? And then these here, I stole this from someone, but I like it. This is a way of getting them to say no, and it's designed just to create doubt. So let's say that you're doing the whole we'll stick with the inconsistent lead flow as our example. Okay, I feel like most people here are trying to operate an agency and sign more clients. So lead generation is a pretty common part. So do you feel like you have a process in which if you followed it to a T, you could get new clients coming in at will, almost like pulling a lever? You can give an analogy like that. They're going to say no, but the point of that is to start creating little like fabrics of doubt for them. Okay. And then like, what do you think has been keeping you from figuring this out on your own? And the key with these is like, this is the question. This isn't exactly how you answer it. So you could say like, well, you seem like you've got your head screwed on, man. What's stopping you from figuring this out on your own? So you almost like compliment them a little bit, but you're still like asking that doubt question. And then they'll say, like, oh, I'm not very technical, or, I'm 50 years old. I don't want to focus on that, whatever it might be. Okay. They'll give you the reason on why they don't want to do it. If they tell you, like, oh, I probably could do it on my own, obviously you would then go down like the whole discovery call part where I go, like, okay, why aren't you doing it on your own already then? That kind of thing. But that's where we can then start to sow some of the seeds of doubt. Okay. One last little, I guess, side comment. I see all the time people are putting like a question in their sales calls where it's like, what's stopping you from hitting 100K in your business right now, or hitting 100K on your own, whatever you want to say. The problem here is that we're isolating doubt on the goal, not on, sorry, we're isolating, like, fucking hell, I can't talk right now. We need to isolate it on the pain, okay? Like the problem that they're having. So we've already established that lead gen is their problem. So that's what you would like hone down on. So lead gen is the biggest bottleneck in you hitting that 100K per month. What's stopping you from figuring that stuff out on your own? Okay. Same exact question, but the point of reference that we're like focusing in on is different. We're focusing on how the service that we provide and help with is the biggest problem they have right now, not just generalizing the problem that they have. Okay. So there's very like subtle things that you can start to do where you're focusing in and you're constantly making them aware that like that's your biggest problem. That's what needs to be addressed. That's what needs to be fixed. Okay. Um, what we can then do as well, this is like much more powerful. We want to start adding in even more tactical questions. So we would say, we've got that pain, we're widened the gap a little bit. Okay, how is that impacting other areas of your business? And then you could go down this route. So this is like I said, you always want this to be natural. Okay, like imagine you seeing like an old family member and you wanted to ask something really, really personal about their life. Okay, you're not just going to come out of the gate and ask them it. It's going to cause like it's just going to be weird. So you exactly the same way. You would just say like, "Hey," as if you're thinking about it, as like, "Hey, is it okay if I just ask a little bit more of a personal question, just real quick?" And then they'll say, "Yes, of course." Right? You've done permission to proceed, and you've also brought it down to a level where it's much more personal, which means you give a personal question, they give you a personal answer. Okay. So you would then say something like, does that put you in a tough spot with? And we would make this problem bleed out into other areas of their life. Okay. So it's no longer a business problem, it's a personal problem as well. So to give an example, you said you're working 80 hours a week. Does that put you in a tough spot with your health and fitness, or a tough spot with having family time, whatever it might be? Okay. And we're then starting to make them realize that like it's not just inside their business, it's affecting their entire life. And that's how we affect like really efficiently widen the gap, because there's no longer just like, oh, they've got a bit of a lead gen problem. It's like, okay, they've got a family problem, they've got a business problem, and a lead gen problem. The lead gen problem is just the fucking seed that's like sprouting. Okay. um, and then obviously we can start to dial in. This is a really good one. I don't know how many of you guys have agencies where you're handling the appointment setting as well. One question that you could ask on this, which is a really, really strong question, is just like, if you were able to cut the time in your fulfillment process by 100%, meaning we completely get rid of it, we handle the entire process, what would that open up for you to do in your business? Such a strong question, however you want to frame it, but something along those lines. But I see people who are doing that model and they just kind of assume instead. They just say, like, oh, well, okay, so you're contacting all the leads right now. Don't you wish you weren't doing that? And they'll be like, yeah, I get it. But like, hey, portraying that entire picture. So, like, if you were able to get rid of that time, you told me that you're putting 10 hours a week into 10 out, like, 2 hours a day, whatever you want to say, into this. If we could just completely gut that out, it completely got rid of it, we handled that, what would that allow you to be able to do extra in your business? And then they start like branching out, like, oh, I could have so much more time for this, but also more time with my family, whatever it might be. Okay. Now, like with always, I always go on a bit of a rant. If you read through these questions one by one with no flow to the conversation, so they tell you something, and you don't expand on that thing there and then like a normal, natural human conversation, and you're just running through these questions, you have no understanding why you're asking them, this document's fucking useless anyway. You might as well delete it. The whole key of this is to give you as many tools as humanly possible that 100% work. So you know, okay, I can tick off all these boxes, and I know that like if I need to come back to something, I have all of these examples and things that I can utilize for when it is the right time in the conversation. Okay, that comes with a little bit with experience, but also just from having that awareness of like, okay, who am I speaking to? What do I need to delve into deeper? So that's on the whole on like the pain side, okay? Pain, widening the gap, starting to create a bit of doubt, all of that stuff, okay? From there, one thing that you can kind of hit fairly early on, it depends on the question, but you also want them to trust you, okay? So one question that you can ask, you can future pace the sale. So like in order to achieve that goal that they already said they want to hit, my clients typically need around 10 hours a week. Is that something you'd be able to commit to now? Now, if you notice certain words, now, my clients, that kind of thing. Okay. Again, we're doing the assumed close. So much of sales is just fucking subconscious, honestly. Like, just when we work together, or is that something you can commit to now? Or my clients typically need this. Like, little things where you're just planting, and it's very subconscious, and they don't realize you do it unless you're really making it stupidly obvious. But like, you're putting them in that frame of reference that they've already made a decision. They're already working with you, they're already a client. But then, yeah, building more upon the trust. Like, what do you already know about us? How did you find us? Have you checked out our Facebook group, our website? You know, maybe it depends where you're at with your business. Okay. But like, have you seen our success stories? I would ask that later, more towards the pitch. And if they say no, on your pitch, show some success stories. And if you don't have any, but you're using a contractor, show some of your contractor success stories, whatever it might be to build a bit of credibility. For us, when we were selling for Educate, or when I was selling for Educate, but now I'm like training it, it was like, how long have you been following Iman for? That's the easiest opening question because it builds trust straight away. They're like, oh yeah, this is Iman's thing. I've been following him for 3 years. Okay, whatever it might be. So that's just a little section there where you build that trust. Obviously, trust is built throughout the entire call as well. But these are some examples of questions that you can ask to further build upon that trust. Okay. Now, with the this is like a section that I want to just sit on for a little bit. And if anyone has any questions or anything at any point, obviously type it in the chat, whatever it might be. I'm more than happy kind of help out. But this is like something that always comes up for agency owners. Okay. And we kind of touched on this a little bit at the beginning already, but like most business owners have tried some kind of service by this point. Okay. Most of them have tried Facebook ads or some form of whatever it is that you're providing. And maybe they didn't get the exact results that you were or that they were hoping for. And as a result, no matter how good your discovery is, if you don't fully address this and almost check the box and move forward from it, you're still going to get that objection at the end. Like everything seems great, but I've done something like this before. I don't know. I feel like I just need to think about this. I don't want to get burnt again. Okay. That kind of bullshit. We need to actually understand what the fuck was missing from what they've done already and then address it and deal with it and look for what they were missing so that we can tailor our pitch towards that. um Lawyers is always going to be like a rough one. Certain niches have tougher people. Like certain niches, like real estate's another one. Okay, real estate is harder to do cold calls to, but then when you sign a client, it's more worthwhile because they're like often big retainers or good performance, whatever it is. There's niches that are easier to cold call, but then you might have smaller clients. Lawyers is one of those ones. Like you're going to get decent clients when you sign them, but you're also going to get a lot of people that tell you to go fuck yourself. That's the name of the game. Um, Honestly, it's so hard to say. The thing that I would say is like I was trying to do like a ton more sales training and research and shit like that around cold calls, but everyone says the exact same thing. And we're very I've got Jordan Belfort's like fucking 30K sales training program. I've got like but I got random things and like no matter what, they all just say the same. So that to me just suggests that like obviously it's a numbers game no matter what, and I kind of said this before, and it's just pure confidence and conviction and that kind of shit, and just knowing that like it's the name of the game, man. You're gonna get, especially niche as well. You're gonna get told to go fuck yourself. That's how it is. But the more resilient you become to that, and the more human you can make it, the better. So, like, I was speaking to a few people, and they told me like someone I was on a cold call, and someone told me to fuck off. Okay, use a bit of humor for that because the worst thing that happens is that you turn that rejection into something amusing. The best thing that happens is that person sees that you're a human being, you've got a personality, and maybe they actually fucking end up flipping around and being like, "Oh, okay," and giving you a chance. Like when I used to cold call, I had some guy that told me to suck his dick or something, right? And I said like, "Sure, bro, I'm gonna add that to my to-do list, and then I'll let you know when it's done." Okay, and literally he started laughing, and it's a bit of a like an extreme example, I guess. But my point with that is like when it comes to cold calls, they want you off of the phone because they don't know you, they don't trust you, and they're sick of cold calls. But the moment they see there's an element of humanity to you, that's where they open up to you. So the best thing that you can do is just show your character and personality a little bit, as much as you physically can in the beginning. So I used to say something along the lines of like, "Look, man, I know you're busy and I know I have the world's most fucking boring flat voice, but if you have X amount of time, I'd love to blah, 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 whatever." Then I go into my spiel, okay? But it just creates that little bit of humanity where they're like, "Oh, this guy can joke about at least," where I'm like, "Dude, I know my voice is fucking boring. I don't want to put you to sleep, so I'm only going to take up 50 seconds of your time. Is that okay?" And then, boom, they're like, "Oh, yeah, that's fine." And they're laughing a little bit, okay? That's the key to it, I would say. When it comes to cold calls, you've got 5, 10, 15 seconds to show that you are a human being. That would be my only focus, okay? Um, that would be my advice on there, bro. Like you're gonna no matter what, when you're cold calling, it's always gonna have some rough cold calls. That's part of it. My advice, like if you can do anything to show your character a little bit early on, like that was my thing, talking about how boring my voice is. So I don't want to put you to sleep. Is it cool if I take 40 seconds of your time right now? It's just a little it's the same thing, but I just add a bit of humor in. So that would kind of be my advice on the cold calling side. Um, Shamin is on it today with the with the link. Appreciate you, bro. Fuck off. Well, I guess I won't invite you to my birthday then. Exactly. A bit of humor, it goes a long, long way. So yeah, that's a good way as well. I think that would work really well as well. Like, I won't invite you to my birthday. Noted. Guess you aren't my friend then. Some shit like that is good. But yeah, going back to the document. So building upon the pain and addressing the past. Like I said, this is one of the most common objections. Okay. So obviously we need to identify like the problem and build upon that first. Okay. So it's like, how long have you actually been, you can say like actively as well. Like, how long have you been trying to fix this problem? What have you tried before to fix this, if anything? Aside from speaking to me, have you been out there looking for things that would solve this problem? When it comes to getting help, what exactly do you feel like you need? How do you think you'll know when you've found something that's a fit? Okay, all of these are just temp checking what they're actually looking for. Is there anything else you're looking for in a marketing agency or whatever? Have you ever tried what we do before, the service that we do? What was your experience with what you tried? Now, these questions here are fucking gold. Okay, imagine you're on a call with someone who's already worked with an agency before and they didn't get what they wanted. Ask them the question: what was the difference between what was promised to you and what actually happened? They'll tell you. Okay. And if you could go back in time, learning from that experience, what do you wish you would have asked that salesperson before hopping into the program or the service or whatever it is that they do? Okay. Such a fucking good way to like get them to open up about the issues that they had. Okay. And then like a more simple version of that question, I always used to ask this as well, is like, okay, I'm sure there were some things that were decent about what like with that company you worked with. What did you like about them? What do you feel like was missing on why you didn't get those results? And they'll tell you, because the worst thing you could say is like, oh, it sounds like they were terrible. Why did you not like them? Because you put yourself in this negative framing where you're shit talking something else and they think that you're just doing that to get the sale. The best thing you can do is just act like a concerned, supportive friend. Oh, okay, well, what was good about what they done, and what do you feel like was missing that didn't just quite hit the mark? Um, how do you go about it at my stage? I know self for Iman or Elon Musk, I self for myself. Right, you can still build trust. The best thing, I mean, like I said, if you're using like a contractor, use the contractor's case studies. If you've got a website, beef out that website, make it look like a bit nicer. Try and add in as much as you can. Add a video of yourself. Maybe before when they're coming into a meeting, send them a short YouTube video that, or after the call's been booked, you can have it play straight away, like a short introduction, like video that's nicely recorded. It's like, hey, I'm the business owner, blah blah blah. These are the expectations for the call. Little things. Okay, you don't have the weight of 10 years of marketing that Iman has had, but you still have little things that you can layer to build some level of trust leading into the call. Okay. Like the worst thing you can do is just get them booked in for a call and then you take the call and there's nothing in between. If we can at least send them testimonials, if you ever had a testimonial or case studies of your contractors, or at least like a video of you breaking down how the call's going to be, make sure you're on a laptop and a PC with some notes, come ready with your business's numbers so that we can get a bit deeper and understand where you need help. Some shit like that where you just showcase your authority a little bit, but also showcase that like you're a human being, you're professional as well. All of that stuff, like that's still going to build trust. It's like that's the key is like if you do what you can with where you're at. Pre-game ritual before cold calling. Um, a little bit. I don't know how effective it was. I just had that mentality, like that dog mentality, like you have to push past it. Um, I would have like a thing on my PC, like where you like click it and it adds like a number to it. So you can like track how many you've done. It's like very visual. So I had like that. So I could be like, cool, that's my first call done, 50, whatever. And then before that, if I was like in my own head, I know it's like so annoying and boring and what everyone says, but like breathing just super. I think it's Andrew Huberman talks about like you breathe in like deep, it's pretty much as deep a breath as you can, and then you still try and take like another deep breath, even though you've basically done a full inhale, and it does something like on resetting the brain, some shit like that. So I would kind of do that shit and just have that mentality that it's like you're speaking to a friend. One other thing, I can't remember who said this. Someone else I read about this, like where you can just say that like someone else's name as well. We're so scared of rejection. That's the only reason that no one wants to cold call. We're so scared of rejection. Like if you just said like when you call, oh yeah, my name's Dylan, your name's Scott, then when they reject you, they're rejecting Dylan. That's more of a psychological like thing. However you want to do it. But for me, it was just like tracking it, like cool. I've only got 20 more to do, whatever it might be. And then sometimes you hit like the let's say 50 cold calls was your target. You hit that 50, and you're like, you know what, fuck it. I still got a few hours right now. Cause like 100 cold calls, I would say 100 cold calls takes 100 minutes for the average person. Because like how many people are you going to dial that don't answer, or how many voicemails are you going to go through, or how many people are going to reject you as soon as you get through? You take off the time that those are, and then you might have a few actually strong conversations, which like increase the average. But I wouldn't say like 120 minutes, 130 minutes. You can get 100 cold calls done pretty easily. So yeah, that's just kind of like the mentality. Like way I would do it, like I used to do it as well, is like when I started, it was like, cool, I'm gonna do 5 cold calls today. And then like the next day it's like 10, next one's 15, 20 before you get to that kind of like nice sweeter spot where it's like, cool, if my day's busy, I'll do 50. If I've got more of a free day, I'll do at least 100. You start setting those extra goals. But cold calling will no one ever loves to do a cold call, okay? Like you should have the mentality like I'm doing this with the knowledge that eventually I'll probably have some other poor person doing the cold calling for me so I can be a fucking business owner. But right now you need to develop that skill and it's going to transfer into your life. Look at every single cold call that rejects you as a massive lesson, even though you don't realize it. Okay, you'd be like, "Oh, this person just rejected me. I have nothing to learn from that." You've got a fuck ton to learn from that. You've fortified yourself. Your mental resilience is stronger. Like you maybe can start to map out how you could have overcome that a little bit differently because they hung up on you after you said whatever. There's so many lessons you can learn from it every time, and if you take it more as like a lesson rather than a failing, that's going to help you. If they don't answer, do you recommend leaving a voice note? I commented on someone put that in the community today. Um, The only thing I would ever do, like the way to look at it is like if you leave a voice note, um, that's taking up time that you could have been dialing again. If you're gonna do like if you have to, or if you feel like, oh, I really want to leave a voice note, just say like, hey, it's Scott. Would you be able to call me back? Here's my number. Keep it vague, because no, if you say like, hey, it's Scott from this agency, and I guarantee you 10 leads per month, they will never fucking call you back. Now, obviously, sometimes they might call you, and then it kind of becomes a cold call, and they're pissed. Whatever. That's why, like, it's up to you if you want to do the voicemails or not. The worst thing you can do is try and pitch in a voicemail. Like, they will never ever get back to you. Um, Setting expectations of the call. I would maybe tell them ideally be on a PC or a laptop in case you need to share your screen. And that's pretty much it. Just say like, make sure you're in somewhere fairly quiet with a laptop and a PC, because I might need to share my screen and break a few things down for you. I want to make sure that you can see it. If you feel like there's anything relevant that I should know leading up to the meeting, feel free to reply to the email or the message or wherever you sent it. Um, around that. That would be the main things I would do, to be honest. So it doesn't need to be crazy in depth. You've hit the main points there. Cool. So to go back on this, so I want to wrap this up before we overrun. But have you tried this before? What was your experience? So we've hit on these, okay? So this is really, in the way, like I said this before, each one of these, you would have almost like either a mental checklist or a physical one. Where you're like, cool, I identified the pain, tick. I widened the gap on that pain, tick. I've created doubt that they couldn't do it themselves. Cool. Opportunity cost. We're gonna hit that, I think, in a second, right? Did I already hit that? That's it. Opportunity cost. Boom. We've gone on the desire. Finances. Do they have support? Built the trust. If you know, like tick, 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 boom, 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 done. Fuck, it's a strong fucking call. Exactly. Yeah. You can say like anything that will create extra trust. Even just that post call booking confirmation video that will build some trust. So I'm not even going to really delve on this one. Money. So this is like if you feel like they're not going to have enough finances for what you provide. If it's B2B, I feel like you don't really need to hit on this unless they really say like, hey, business is tough right now. I'm really struggling. Like finances are really tough. I'm struggling to pay my staff. Some of that kind of shit. Then maybe hit on it. But otherwise, what you tend to do when you touch on finances is you create a bit of sales resistance, because they know you're asking about their finances because you want them to pay for what you're doing. So you should only hit this when you've got the gut feeling that like it's going to be an objection later at the end of the call where they're like, hey, I literally cannot make this work. I think it's amazing. I think it's perfect. Like, because obviously with objections, you always want to isolate it. So you're like, cool, finances aside, is this perfect? Is this exactly what you're looking for? If they say, yes, this is perfect, this is everything I'm looking for, but I literally can't pay for it, that's a scenario where you should have hit on the finances beforehand. And there's normally little telling signs that like give you that feeling like I should probably hit on finances right now. Okay. I'm not gonna really go into it. What I will just say is like you find out about, okay, what are you bringing in at the moment? Where's that leave you after tax? Blah blah blah. All of that shit. What's your plan if 6 months goes by and nothing changes? You're still living month to month. Okay. All of that shit. Then we would address the resourcefulness. So can I ask you an honest question? Yes. Are you willing to whatever they've said so that you can ultimately get desired outcome that they've already told us? Okay. And sometimes people get defensive. This is why, again, you want to be careful with this. But if someone does get defensive, look, the reason I'm asking you is to find the best route for you to achieve your goal. We have some clients come in and based on their finances, they go straight to paid advertising. Other clients, we have to leverage some organic first so that they can fund their own paid ads, things like that. It really just depends. We justify it a little bit, okay? Like we soften the blow of them. Before you ever hit financial questions, you always say, and I think Paul probably hits this in six figure, but I know there's a stigma talking around cash, but is it cool if I, that kind of thing, if I ask a couple of financial questions, whatever it might be, okay? Just permission to proceed on the finances, okay? So they are a little bit more open with us, but also they've kind of agreed to it as well, and it lessens the sting. So I'm not going to go super in depth on that, but that's the finances if you feel like it's necessary. Okay. Now, from there, opportunity cost. Okay. So there's a couple of different routes for this. If they've tried nothing and if they've tried loads of stuff. Okay. So we've already addressed they've been burnt before, they tried shit, blah, 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 all of that shit. Right. So if that's the case, then obviously we would go down that they've tried stuff before. If they tried nothing, you would just say like, "Cool." Can I ask you a personal question? Like you always want to. I don't want to role play every time, but like you always want to sound like you're coming from a place of genuine care. Okay. Every single one of these questions, if you say like, "Can I ask you a personal question?" flat and no emotion and no tonality, it will feel weird and uncomfortable, and they'll probably almost they might even say no to it because it's just so not human. If you're like, "Cool, Scott, is it okay if I just ask you a personal question?" They're gonna be like, "Oh, like this person sounds concerned." They'll be like, "Yeah, of course." Okay, so you've been wanting to start, and then you would obviously label in the service that you've identified as the problem. Let's say it's marketing. You've been wanting to start marketing for about 3 years now, you said, and you're finally reaching out to do something about it. I'm curious, why is that suddenly important? What's actually shifted recently for you? The other word that people use a lot is like, what was the line in the sand moment? That kind of thing, okay? The line in the sand one's quite nice because it paints that, again, visual perspective. So, like, what was the moment that shifted for this to actually become a priority? And then they'll tell you, is there any other reason that this is important and you don't want to stay where you're at right now? Boom, boom, boom. Okay, they start giving you upon this. If they've tried loads, you'd be like, cool. Again, same thing. Can I ask you a personal question? After all of that, after spending six figures over the last 2 years, trying 5 to 7 different programs, companies, whatever it might be, that didn't work. I mean, and like, look at how this is typed. I typed this up purposely like this. You would be like, I mean, I'm curious. What has you even keeping on? What about getting this business to 7 figures is that important for you? Okay. You want them to feel that emotion in the same way that you're portraying it and projecting it onto them. They'll tell you, and it's like, how else would that impact you? Is there any other reason for this? Now, this is something I've touched on this in my discovery calls framework before, I think. Labeling is such a fucking powerful tool if you use it in the right way. When you put a label on someone, it defines the person that they believe they should adhere to. So you tell someone like you're the kind of person that takes risks, they feel like they have to take risks to it as long as they agree with the label. So obviously you can't say some absolutely off the cuff fucking random label that they doesn't resonate with them. But if they give you this example where they break down exactly why this is why they're still trying options even though they've tried loads and they failed, you can label them and say like, okay, makes sense. So, I mean, that tells me that despite dealing with companies that didn't quite hit the mark for you, you are still the type of person that understands the importance of resolving whatever problem they've got, inconsistent lead flow, and your business and the growth of it is clearly a priority for you. I love that. Okay. They feel now like they have to adhere to fixing that problem and the growth of their business is a priority. And it's purely like they're gonna have a smile on their face and tell you, yes, it is. In reality, you're pushing the sale close towards where you want it to go. But in their head, you've complimented them and told them they're a great person and their business is really important and all of this shit. Obviously, we're doing this to help us with the sale, but still win. They feel like, yeah, I am that, you're right, but it actually helps us. Now, desire, we may have, like I said at the beginning, we may have dipped our toes in this a little bit if we had to reverse engineer. They're holding in this month, future pacing the outcome. Okay, again, this is all these like little tactics where we're like assuming that we're in that position. Okay, we're future getting to that 100K that have an impact on you. 100K per month. How do you see life being different than it is now? What would your wife think if you started bringing 30K per month home instead of 5K per month home? I know this is a personal question. How do you want them to think of you? You can even go like, depending on the prospect. These are ones where it's like risky almost. Okay. But if you've got a very open prospect and they're just giving you everything and they're talking and you've got a good relationship built with them, you can say to them, like, I mean, you're a, you seem like a really driven individual. I'm curious, like, going deeper, what type of legacy are you looking to leave behind for your family? It's pretty fucking deep. I probably asked that question like once or twice in my life because it has to be right for the person. But you're gonna get that into a very emotional state of the sale when you start touching on stuff like that. What is your non-monetary goals, your personal goals that you want your business to allow you to achieve? And you can go down, you can justify some of the questions you ask as well. So like when you ask someone like this, is like the reason I ask that is I don't want to just help you build your business to 100K per month and make sure that it's more profitable and we reduce workload for you. I also want to make sure that it's still like a passion project for you and you enjoy it and it doesn't. And then obviously I'll drop this document again in case anyone's jumped in and um, doesn't have it. But last couple of things. If we get the type of person who tells you a goal and that goal is like small, okay? So then we don't have a big gap built in terms of the financial. Let's say that they're at 50K a month and they said their goal is 70K per month. It's not a huge increase. So like they're not going to really like value what we tell them. If we're getting them from, let's even go smaller. Let's say we're getting them 50K a month to 60K per month, but we're charging them 5K. They're not going to be like, okay, this is really worth it. So when you want them to reframe their goal and think bigger, the easiest way would just be, okay, if you got to 60K per month, would you just stop there or what's the next goal? And they'll just give you a goal. That's a very simple way of doing it. Sometimes they'll be like, oh yeah, I don't know, I just keep going, I guess. Okay, what's the goal ultimately? Okay, going back into it, but like you can say this like questions like this. Okay, it's like let's push realism to the side a little bit. Where would you really like this to go? And then they'll like start to like get a bit more into the dreamy state. Or if they're just so fucking real, I used to have this for like agency navigator calls where it's like, what's your financial goal? Oh, 2K per month. And you're like, fuck man, everyone tells me 10K per month, 2K is nothing. Okay. And you would just say, like, personally, from my experience, you might be being a little reserved there. I actually had example. They came to me in a similar situation as you. They also set a comparably kind of smaller goal, but within this time frame, which is less than what we addressed with you, they were able to get to. And then what you can go for here is a no, which is positive. I've touched on this before. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. I always lose my voice on a Wednesday. I do too much coaching. Um, if you get them to, people want to say no, if you get them to say no and it has a positive outcome, it's a win-win. Okay. People are way more comfortable saying no. So you can say that after you've given that example, if it was possible for them, do you see any reason that it wouldn't also be possible for you? And they'll say no, cool. And then you kind of broken that disbelief or whatever. Now, the last and final one before we wrap up is spouse, business partner. I guess parents would be one as well. If like in our situation, I don't know, many of you guys are certain to people who would need to speak to their parents, but this is a fairly basic one. Okay, if you hear someone say the words like "we" when they're talking about their business, there's probably someone else involved in their business, so you would address it there and then. You would literally just say like, "I noticed you said we. What did you mean by that? Is there like another person who's got a responsibility in the company? Whatever you want to say, another leader in the company." Okay, with the wife slash partner, it's typically going to come up fairly organically during the vision stage. Okay. Like where the desire, where they want to go, all of that shit. They might talk about having more family time or, impacting their wife or their life, all that shit. So then you would hit it there. Okay. But business partner, they say we, and you're like, okay. Or obviously you can just ask the question as well, like, is there someone else that's responsible for big decisions like this, whatever the fuck you want to say. But then going down that route, what does the leadership structure work like in your company? Who's responsible for what? If they tell you there's another main kind of other business partner or like a dual CEO, is it 50-50? And then here's a good question. So earlier you said that your biggest challenge is inconsistent lead flow. Who would be responsible for that? And if they tell you, oh, Jim, the other person, you're actually speaking to the wrong fucking decision maker. So at that point, you're obviously going to reschedule them. But if you're speaking to the right one, you would then still want to make sure that you've got the support from them. So does your partner know about us / this call? Would they be working with us on this project too, or just you? If they tell us yes, they would also be working on it, we would reschedule for both of them to be on board. Okay. Do they trust in you making decisions for XYZ? If not, okay, boom. If they say yes, there's full trust, we're not going to get the bullshit after 1 hour of a sales call, they tell us, "Oh, I need to speak to my business partner because you were too fucking much of an idiot to address this 15 minutes, 10 minutes into the call, whatever it might be. Like this should be such an easy tick. And when people don't hit it, it's the easy way out for the prospect instead. Okay. 90% of the time when they tell you this at the very end of the sale, it's actually probably just bullshit and it's a smokescreen and they just don't want to make a decision there and then. And it's the easy way out. Okay, because you can't argue it past a certain point. You know, you can start challenging them. Well, ultimately, who makes the decision? Would you rather ask for permission or forgiveness? That kind of shit. But like, you should have addressed it in the discovery. Same thing with the spouse. What does your partner think about the problem? Are they supportive of you fixing it? Are they involved in the business? Do they know about this call? What would they think if they knew? And then future pace it. Let's pretend for a second you decided to move forward with something like this. Would you need their permission for that? And if they're like, maybe, boom, whatever, I put somewhere right here. This is how you would reschedule someone. Let's say that you said like, okay, yeah, they have a business partner or a wife or whatever it might be. So you need to reschedule them. I get that. That's totally fine. The biggest thing for us is alignment, meaning that you two are both clear and exactly on the same page about not just the problem, but the solution to it. What we want to avoid is you being like 1000% certain, like this is the perfect thing, and your partner doesn't feel the same way. Ultimately, it's going to lower the chance of success, blah, 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 all of that stuff. Whatever you want to say, and then you'd reschedule it. Or alternatively, you can say what like another line, which is one I used as well, where it's like, I completely understand that. However, I don't want you to go away and then the other person has a ton of questions and then we have to end up on a call anyway and all this shit it just becomes messy, blah blah blah, all of that shit. So at that point you would reschedule. Um yeah, you would hit a good question, definitely. You would hit this a lot earlier, 100%. This is like what I said in here, like it should come up organically in the sale, in the conversation, okay? So like it's up to you when you feel like it's the right point to hit it. Some people will say it right at the top of the call. Just so I know, is there anyone else that would be a part of this decision? You can just ask that out of the gate, okay? Or you can wait for it to feel a little bit more better. Really depends on the size of your agency or business, or if you're doing sales or what that. Of course, you want to hit it before scheduling the call. That's a question you should always ask on there. But then when you get to the discovery call, maybe they told you that they don't need anyone there, and then you'd still want to address it during the call anyway, because some people will still tell you, "Hey, I want to speak to my wife," whatever the fuck it might be, that kind of thing. So we would still do it, but we would do it when it feels right. So for me, like if you're like an agency and you're taking, let's even say like one sales call a day, I know some people are taking less, some people are taking way more, but like, you don't wanna burn your leads, but you still don't wanna waste your time either. So you wanna address that and try and make sure that, like, if there are other people a part of the decision process, they'd be attending the call. But you also still wanna address it anyway again on the call because maybe they're a business owner and they don't have a business partner, but then they're gonna give you the bullshit, "I wanna talk to my wife," at the end just to get off the call anyway. So we would still address that during the call, but we don't wanna do that right at the top of the call because you're not taking that many calls anyway. It's better just to like get them a little bit on board. And then when the conversation naturally goes that way, we can then go down like the wife route or the business partner route or whatever it might be using this exact framework. But yeah, always that's one thing. Like no matter what the booking note says, I don't give a fuck. I've done this for long enough to know that like the booking note is one thing, but you will still get some people that use this bullshit objection at the end as just a cop out, like a way to get out from the sale. So no matter what, no matter even if the like booking note says like, no, I don't need a decision maker on the call. I'm the single sole business decision maker. You still want to hit this because it's like I said here, it's ticking off every possibility for there to be a potential objection. So hopefully that makes sense. I am losing my voice hard today. Hopefully that was beneficial. I wanted to run through and kind of coach on the document because just reading a document without some of the context sometimes doesn't quite hit the mark, okay, on what you're looking for. Now, like I always say, and more people have been doing this, which is great. If you need something specific for your business, your agency, sales, coaching advice, whatever it might be, you can message me directly on my Instagram. You don't need to follow me. I don't. It's not why I'm doing it. I don't give a fuck if you follow me or not. But you can just send me a message, and sometimes it might take me a day or two, every now and then. But like, I'll send a voice note. I'll break down your situation. I'll help you out. Okay. I appreciate that. Like, not every single one of you. Sometimes people don't feel super comfortable asking questions on here. That's fine as well. And other people, we don't have time for it or whatever it might be. Okay. So if you want to message me directly, you can. Is it right to DM on Discord? I don't really check my DM messages on Discord, I'll be honest. If you want to avoid what's it called? Instagram, then you can let me know like another method that works for you. I just don't really use my Discord, to be honest. My Discord's a bit of a mess. um but yeah, hopefully that was beneficial. Like I said, that is a pretty in-depth way of looking at exactly the things that you need to hit during your discovery. Now, I'll say this time and time again. Discovery is the most important part of a sales call, without a shadow of a doubt. Okay. It's exactly where we get them into the mindset that they need to change their problems, they need to fix them, they need a service like this. Now, if we utilize this and the discovery call framework, like I said, this will teach you the exact structure that you need to use and a few extra questions and stuff that you can link in as well. And you can kind of make your own script. It teaches you how to set up the beginning of the call, how to transition, how to hit the pitch, all of that shit. And then if you're ticking off these 7 things here, I genuinely firmly believe that you have maximized your fucking closing percentage massively. And when that happens, you can all buy me a fucking coffee.